Sandi, thanks for doing another video with me. We're here at Happy Dirt in Durham, North Carolina, and if you haven't seen the longer video about what you're doing here, I'll put a link above here so you can check that out. But I want to talk today about sweet potatoes, because that's a huge crop for us here in North Carolina. So you had a lot of stuff you wanted to share about that. I know it's a big part of your business.
Absolutely. I could literally talk about sweet potatoes for hours and hours. They are a huge part of our business. They're a huge part of the agricultural economy here in North Carolina. And in many ways, it's a crop that has strayed closer to a commodity, almost grain crop, than a vegetable crop for many farmers. For the most part, because it's a once-a-year process. You plant, you pull them up, you put them up in storage, and then you wash and pack them throughout the year. We have moved into a bigger is better model, and what that's meant for many farms is either you invest in very expensive storage and packing facilities, and then you buy from other farms, or you are a small farm and you don't have that kind of capacity, and so you wind up dropping off your product at another farmer's storage shed, and you pay them for storage, and you eventually get paid out maybe 6 months later, when eventually it's your turn in the kind of queue to be able to start getting your product graded out. And you don't really know what you're bringing in. You don't know how many grade 1 potatoes are there, how many jumbos, how many canners, or how much is inedible and going to get actually like tossed and dumped. We have a lot of different varieties of sweet potatoes that can be grown in North Carolina. We are constantly surprised by the consumer's ability to try to attach on to new varieties. It's really exciting for us to be able to pass that back to farmers and continue to make sure that farmers remember that the same one variety that maybe 50 years ago or 20 years ago the industry was saying you have to grow one thing that's really supermarket friendly and it doesn't matter what the flavor is, it just has to be able to ship well. Well, it's been really rewarding to be able to help farmers realize that customers are looking for great flavor. They're looking for a good story behind the variety. They want to know not just what works well in the soil, but what works well for them on their plate. And they want to not be generic. They want to be different. And so that's been really fun. But peeling back these layers that the industrial system has really built into the agricultural system of less transparency, less connectivity is unfortunately as easy to be able to discuss when you look at sweet potatoes as it is at sausage, because again, you might have full transparency and traceability from a food safety perspective, but there could be a blend of lots of different farmers' products in that one box.
So you were talking about sweet potatoes being like a grain-like crop, like a commodity crop. Can you talk a little bit about the history of sweet potatoes in this region?
Historically, sweet potatoes are kind of like what tobacco was for many, many years here, that you could be a 100-acre tobacco farmer or a 100-acre sweet potato farmer, or you could be a 5-acre farmer, and you could be a full-time farmer, or you could be like a school teacher and also farm a few acres. And that's what our state knew for several decades. And in the last few decades, it's moved more towards this kind of larger business model where a packing house is much more of a business than a farm necessarily. It's very important, don't get me wrong. We need storage, we need packing lines, we need washing facilities and all that stuff.
So I don't know a ton about the tobacco industry, but I'm learning as I've been living here and getting to know more farmers. And I think one of the things that tobacco farmers have struggled with is that lack of control over pricing and what they're going to get for their products, and it just sort of, they drop it off and someone could judge it for what it is and maybe it comes out later. And you were saying that is kind of how sweet potatoes have been for a long time.
Yeah, man, that's our exact story actually. When I moved here, I was like, oh my gosh, tobacco farmers are absolutely the niche that we should be focusing on, because historically it was a quota or an auction system. Like, they don't want to have to learn how to get good at negotiating on pricing. They don't want to have to learn how to develop new packaging innovations or even invoicing.
One thing you've mentioned before was that the transparency thing with the farm's name on the product that's going to the customer. What are some other things you guys are doing now to sort of support the farmer in this complicated sweet potato market?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think an important part for us is to talk about varieties and to help find a home for every product. Like, you're not going to find that perfect shape, skin set, size sweet potato, perfect colors, free of blemishes. You're not going to find that on every single item.
All right, let's talk varieties here, because I don't think I don't think many of us think about different varieties of sweet potatoes. We're like, oh, there's a couple different kinds of non-sweet
Right.
potatoes, and then, oh, we've got sweet potatoes if we want sweet potatoes. So what do you got going on here? You got a lot of different styles here.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are Covingtons. These are kind of standard, and I pulled this one out because I wanted to make the point that even the standard variety is not meant to all look the same. They're not going to come out of the soil that way. So these are purple sweet potatoes. Lots of fans out there and a lot of people who have no idea what they are. Not to be confused with Murasaki's, which, if I could cut one open, is white on the inside. So more purple on the outside, but white flesh. This is purple in and out, meat and skin. This is Garnett. This is the sweet potato that they haven't quite cured yet, so there's a little bit of skin damage, some peeling, so we're not shipping these too far yet. But the Garnets are what I think are the most popular among the organic supermarket shopper. They're delicious and the hardest to grow. These are white bonita variety. They also are obviously a lot bigger, but those are small right now. Yeah, so I think from a variety perspective, it's really important for people to have options. It's important for people to experiment. I think that in a kitchen, everybody should know how to play around with their food and get to know what they like the most. The funny thing is for farmers is that, you know, it makes for more tracking, and I think the challenging thing for a sweet potato farmer is that you're putting it in storage, and then every week, you know, once a week or twice a week or whatever, you're pulling a bin down. That's the pallet size, kind of pretty tall, 1,200 pound storage system that has wooden walls, so really good airflow, so really good storage solution for sweet potatoes. They're pulling down a bin, they're putting it on a wash line, they're washing them and packing them out. Well, in the supermarket world, this is what needs to go into that box. In the real world of farming, as most of you know, a lot of them come out looking like this or like a jumbo. And so in that sense, what's important for us is that kind of middle entity that's focused on being really supportive of farmers. We need to find a home for all the edible stuff. And so it's been really fun for us over the last few years to be able to engage not just in the conversation around food waste, which we've been having with farmers for many, many years, but there are so many buyers now that are processors or supermarkets or home delivery companies that are focused around being able to work with the product that might be slightly imperfect, but still perfectly edible, perfectly nutritious and delicious. And so now we say to farmers, and we really mean it, don't throw anything out. Like, don't throw it in the compost bin if it's edible. We will find a home for it.
Do you communicate or plan with farmers ahead of time for variety so you have different ones that you offer, or you just let people grow what they grow?
I mean, usually we plan in advance by asking them, what do you want to grow? But there are certain items also that we'll hear from customers feedback, like the zucchini needs to be a darker green rather than a gray, or these green beans were a little too soft. So we definitely have feedback that we'll share. But for the most part, we're asking the farmer what has worked best for you, and it's as much in advance as possible. We can do the dance, but we prefer to have it in the plan.
When's the sweet potato harvest season?
So it varies, but it's usually around September, mid-September to mid-October. And then depending on what kind of weather we've had for the whole year, the curing, especially on organics, because organic production does not use certain chemicals that prevent disease and fungal problems and also emergence of sprouts. So there's a lot of chemicals that are used in conventional sweet potato products, and organic farmers just have hot, dry air as their support system for that. And so it could take up to 5 weeks to cure.
Okay, so harvested September-ish and then take some time to cure. Will these store all year, or are you going to be sourcing sweet potatoes from elsewhere?
Well, both. These can store all year, but will probably sell out. And we have been working with some great farmers out of Mississippi, so we'll probably lean on them, and maybe even from California if need be.
Okay, and what's your favorite way to eat a sweet potato?
Oh, gosh. I mean, chop it up and throw it on a pan and do something delicious with a sauce.
All right, awesome. Thanks for all the cool stuff about sweet potatoes.
Absolutely. Thank you.